Go ahead and get started. Call our meeting to order. It is Wednesday, January 14th at 6 p.m. And we will begin with a Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Daniel Gonzalez.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will now have our roll call, starting with my left.
Matt Wheelwright, no conflicts.
John Lyons, no conflicts.
Barbie DeSoto, no conflicts.
Lisa Jensen, no conflicts.
Melissa Kendall, no conflicts.
Daniel Gonzalez, no conflicts.
Ann Allen, no conflicts.
Joel Temple, no conflicts.
And Jonathan Hill, no conflicts. It's great to have a full panel today. Before we begin, I'd like to read a statement on decorum in this meeting. Although this is a public hearing, only the presenters and those invited by the commission may speak or ask questions, unless otherwise invited by the chair. Please wait to speak until called upon. When speaking, be sure to speak into the microphone so that the record is clear. Please begin by stating your name and city of residence for the record. Please limit side conversations as they interfere with the audio recording. If you need to have a side conversation, please step out of the chambers. Please do not attempt to interrupt or speak over others. Intimidating or threatening speech or behavior will not be tolerated at any time. Please refrain from clapping, cheering, booing, or being otherwise disruptive during the hearing. So with that, we will begin with our first item this evening, Development Services requests zone map amendments to approximately 39 acres of land within a quarter mile of the 2230 North UVX Station as part of the station area plan implementation from the RC and SC2 zones to the VLDR, LDR, MDR, and SC3 zones. And Jessica Daniku will be presenting that for us.
Thank you. Just as a very quick summary, because I don't believe we had all of these current planning commissioners on the commission as we went through the station area plan process. We have 4 station area plans that we'll be doing the rezones for. Tonight, we're looking at 2230. So we will be coming back to you with more rezones for these. And just a brief summary of the work that was put into these plans. Started back in 2023. We've gone through, drafted the plans. It went through review. It came to you multiple times. They have now been certified by the state and adopted by city council. So the final step in our first phase of implementation is to rezone the area within the station area boundaries to match what is proposed in our future land use map. So here's just an aerial of the 2230 North Station and everything within a quarter mile. We have landmarks like the small neighborhood Walmart. We have the 2 major car dealerships. It's a very commercial oriented area already. As we were going through the future land use map creation and the plan creation process, basically the best strategy that was decided on with all of our different reviews and committees and citizen input was to keep as much density as close to the station as possible, and then to phase out with intensity of use as we're going to with more distance, so that it integrates better with the surrounding neighborhood and the existing uses. So what we're proposing with this station area, on my left, we have the zoning as it currently is, and then on my right, we have what we're proposing to rezone to. We're proposing to rezone the Walmart area to SC3, and then that's our regional commercial instead of our shop general commercial. So it's slightly more intense, and then just a lot of different densities. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Jessica. Any questions from the commission for staff? Joel?
The map on the right is how it's currently zoned. Is that correct?
My right?
Sorry, yes.
That's what we're proposing to rezone to. So the map on my left with the
I think
SC2
our right is the same as her right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any reason that a couple of these pockets are not? It looks like the automotive car
Mhm.
and that some of the stuff on the north is not being rezoned. Is there any reason for that?
So it already matches what we're proposing with our future land use map.
Okay, thank you.
Just to remind us, can you go through what the approximate densities are for medium density, low density, and very low density? Like what more or less that could examples maybe?
Yeah, medium density, I believe is going to be more along the lines of about 12 units to the acre. Low density, I want to say is 6 or 7.
So
And
hold on just a minute. Medium density is up to 30 units to the
I'm
acre.
sorry, I got
Low
that so
density is
wrong.
up to 12.
Medium density is 30. Thank you so much. Low density is 12, and then very low density is 7.
Commissioner Jensen?
I noticed two things that were different from the proposal and the previous proposal and this, or from the future land use map
Mhm.
and the one on the right here. And one of them is the green belt. And I remember we talked about this when you brought the plan before. Is that just because that's not possible to put that little walkway through there? Is that why there was a green belt? It's on page 9 of that one, right there. Right next to Carterville Road, there's that little green belt.
Yes, that's just showing where we would hope that we can put a walkway, but we don't know if it's actually feasible because if we put something in there, it has to be ADA compliant, and the grade there,
Right,
it would
that was a problem.
be a
So it's not included in the rezone because it's not necessary to have for the rezone, but
correct.
still possibly happening on the horizon.
Yeah.
Okay, and then my other question was, back to the other one, the proposed areas to be rezoned. Why does that space of SC3 jut down that little square instead of the MDR go straight across? Is that just land ownership?
Yes, we're just going along the actual parcel lines for our rezone. It juts down because the Walmart owns that back parking lot as
Okay,
well.
thank you.
Jessica, just for the record, for those in attendance, these zone changes, existing uses would be grandfathered in, correct? So the owners don't have to
Correct.
fear that they're being forced to change.
Yes, these rezones would not require any immediate redevelopment. All existing uses would be considered non-conforming, but we would not expect any changes.
Just gives opportunities.
Just as the properties redevelop in the future, they would have to redevelop to the new zone standard.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Matt?
I have a question and then just a comment. So my question is, in the write-up, it's very clear that one of the goals here is about affordability. Clearly adding more units has an effect on affordability, especially when they're higher density, smaller, all of those things. But I wonder, maybe you could just help clarify this. Are there any other things like 20% of a certain zone is expected to be affordable with subsidy? Or do we have programs that are helping people afford these units? Because just having more higher density is not really the answer to our affordability problem
Right.
on its own.
I can't fully speak to all of the different programs that we have. I can say that in our station area plan, we did include language about evaluating what programs are there. And we hope that with rezoning to MDR where there is more density and we can see smaller units that are more affordable. But there's nothing specifically tied to these rezones that are saying we need to have 20% of any future developments be under this certain monthly rent or anything like that.
So follow up then, one, I guess, suggestion that I've seen work elsewhere is some kind of incentive in some of these that incentivizes someone who comes with, hey, 20% will be at 80% AMI. We get more density or something like that to incentivize people to be willing to manage those things, because there's a management fee and problem in trying to execute some of those programs. Do we have anything like that? Do we talk about anything like that? Is that on the table?
Again, there is language to that in the station area plan, and our redevelopment team oversee programs like that. I think Bill can probably speak more to the specifics on that, what programs we have available. I personally did not look into too many options because they are not being tied to these rezones.
Okay. And then my comment here is one of the things the old zone plan kind of does, maybe it was just by accident, but that the new one clearly doesn't, is from an urban design, a social standpoint, from an interaction. If I'm looking at the new on the map on the right, I know you followed parcel lines, but basically what we've created is an LDR across the street from a VLDR. And I would suggest that that's not ideal. If we can avoid that, it's better to have LDR on an opposing side of the street to an LDR, because that's how they relate. They don't relate across the back property line, basically. They relate face to face in terms of how they socialize, how they interact, how they drive, how many trips they make. All of those things are much better suited when you have the matching zone across the street rather than not. So I know it's probably not appropriate to fix that, or I just put that in your head for future. The one on the left, because of how it kind of blankets it, it kind of opens that door. The one on the right is not allowing that into the future. So
Yeah.
just a thought.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we will now open our hearing for the public comment portion. Before we do so, let me just read a statement on comportment during this part of the meeting. You will have 2 minutes to make your comment, and each person may make one comment. When your time is up, you'll hear a ding and the microphone will be muted. If we have questions, we will invite you back up to the microphone at the end of public comments. This time is for comments only. If you have questions about an item, please speak to staff privately. So with that, are there any neighborhood or district chairs present this evening? Okay, you may come forward. You'll have 3 minutes to make your comment.
Thank you. I'm Beth Hedengren, or Elizabeth, and I live in Provo, and I represent the Northwest Neighborhood District. I'm here to report on, we had this presentation at our district meeting, and I'm here to report on the response of the residents at the meeting. Our response was basically twofold. One, there was quite a bit of concern about how more dense housing in this area would add to the traffic at that already very congested intersection at University Parkway. And the city at the time responded that the residents in the area would be walking because walkability is a goal, but realistically, they're going to be going other places than Walmart. And so they probably will have cars and will be using that intersection. So we recommend thorough analysis of the traffic impact on the area before allowing more development in that area, and careful plans to mitigate the congestion. The other comments that came up in our discussion was a concern that more dense housing, excuse me, more dense housing would not leave any space for green space, and that we would encourage the city, as they approve development, to require the developers to include space for green space, playgrounds, sports courts, because people need space to get outdoors when they're in dense housing situations and places where, and if we want affordable housing so that families can live in affordable places, we want the families to live in a place that is conducive to family life and allows them to get outside of their apartments and recreate. So we would suggest that when developers ask permission to build under this new program, that the city require them to provide amenities like green space, playgrounds, sports courts, and walking paths. One more thing, that walking path from Upper Carterville down to the Walmart shopping area, we've been working
about that for a long time in our area. It's very expensive and may never happen. But while few people at this meeting voiced concerns about potential crime and vagrancy if there was a walking path there, others felt that this path would improve walkability and connect Upper Carterville with Lower Carterville. So that's my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll now open this to the general public. Each of you will have 2 minutes to make your comment. If you'd like to comment on this item, please come forward at this time.
Hi, my name is Eric Chase. I'm also on the Northwest Neighborhood District Board, but I just want to talk for myself today. The zone changes that are happening around here are really pretty minimal. I know people see the RC zone and the residential conservation and they get worried about changing that, but those are almost all old apartments anyways. There's hardly any, I don't even know if there's any single family housing in that blue RC zone on the map there. So changing it to match the existing zone, I don't think is that big a deal. I did want to say there are a lot of people that see the benefit of continuing to work on the path from that green space from the Upper Carterville neighborhood down to this area. And I almost think this is kind of not aggressive enough. Just think if the car dealership said, we're changing our business model and we don't need as much space and we want to redevelop the other part of our property here. We would turn them down because we only want commercial there and not a different, more mixed use. I don't see that's happening. I think, but I know that's not what you're doing here tonight. And so I think these are pretty minimal changes. And I think I'm in support of doing this to bring more good stuff around our transit nodes. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments for this item? Okay, not seeing any, we will close the public comment portion of the meeting and bring it back to the commission for discussion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
in response to the questions raised by the neighborhood chair, if the rezonings take place, the city council approves those, the next step for development would be project plan approval. When the applicant applies for project plan approval, they have to submit to the city a traffic study. The traffic study would give us recommendations on what on-site and off-site road improvements need to take place to handle the traffic coming from that project. For example, you're going to see a proposal by Brixton Mall redevelopment in the near future. There are very significant off-site road improvements that have to be made as part of the project because of the housing density they have. In response to the amenity space, all of those zones have amenity space requirements. In the HDR and downtown zones, you'll see the amenity space take place within the building because it's such high density. In MDR, LDR, VLDR, those amenity spaces take place outside the building as open space in the development. In the MDR zone, the open space requirement is 10% of the gross square footage of building. It's a lot. In the LDR and VLDR, it's 20% of the lot area. So it's not insignificant in either of those cases.
Great, thank you. And I just want to mention real quick to respond to the second commenter. The auto dealerships are not precluded from getting a rezone as well if they ever wanted to redevelop into something else. They just haven't told us they want to do that, and so this is already consistent with the area as well as its current use, so it's being left at this time, but doesn't mean it's set in stone forever. Other comments from the commissioners? Where are we at on this issue? There was not, I already closed it. Joel?
I'm curious if there's any sort of TOD centric amenity points or anything like that on offer. Like do we have amenities that promote walkability, that promote using the UVX station that are right here? Things as these new developments come in that are promoting this TOD zone that we have, this quarter-mile radius, instead of everyone having to drive and having to hop in their car to go to places. Are there ways that we can promote that if you're in a TOD, one of these station area plans, that the amenities can be tailored towards that kind of center that we want to create?
You have some examples of what those that might be?
I mean, maybe it would be, yeah, better walkability connections and taking those improvements on as the developer. And I don't know, maybe it's enhanced bike parking for residents of your apartment complex, things like that. Yeah.
I agree. I'm sorry, that was really loud. I agree with that. That's one thing that I see and I keep bringing up also, that like having cut throughs for pedestrians and bikes is what, like, so it's permeable for micromobility is one of the most important things, because if you have to go all the way the long way around, people will drive. So to make the most of this space, that definitely has to be done. And I wanted to address the issues about traffic too. So I had got these stats. These are from 2021 from the Department of Energy, or yeah. It says 52% of all trips in 2021 were less than 3 miles, and 28% of all were less than 1 mile. So already that's like half of all trips. If we could cut that down and people are getting daily needs met, that's actually reducing traffic. Even though there's added housing, like it will be reduced significantly. And I think that that's something that needs to be played up, because I think that's the point of this. And if there is that permeability, it will be successful.
Lisa?
In response to Joel's suggestions, I was thinking along the same things. If this isn't really for the whether or not we rezone the property, but thinking towards the projects that we'd like to see and how to make the rezone actually count for something. If we asked the developers to provide transit passes for their residents, I think that would encourage people to use the transit that's right at their doorstep, because it would make it very accessible for them. So incentives for people who don't bring a car, we give you a transit pass or something like that. And something that would help to promote the walkability that we've just created by having this. And I also was thinking as I looked at this map, so not in response to Joel, but just as general feedback, that I remember when we first looked at these station area plans, this was one of them that I had a problem with, because it felt like it was taking away a commercial node as well. But I looked at the fact that it's an SC3 instead of an SC2. So it's almost like it's trying to ramp up what commercial could go in the small space we've left behind, and then put people in proximity to that commercial space. So it's growing on me as a good combination of uses that meets both needs. So I feel good about this. I appreciate the feedback from the neighbor about those houses underneath those zones not actually being in opposition to what we're putting on top of them. But I also appreciate what Commissioner Wheelwright said, that maybe not having it go where the people across the street are low density and the other ones are very low, and maybe having it go through backyards would be better. So if I were to recommend something to the council that was different than what is being proposed, I would probably lean towards that, where the backyard is the boundary and not across the street. That'd be more compatible.
Joel?
Just an example that I'm thinking of, and obviously we're not San Francisco, and I'm not proposing we become San Francisco, but I remember attending a conference and the mayor was talking about this program they had where they offered density bonuses in exchange for going above the amenity point requirements. And one example he showed was an apartment complex that, they kind of created like a path right through the middle of it to keep the bike path in place. So you can still get through to the apartments if you're going to go all the way around the block. I'm not saying we need to do that, but I think there are some creative ways where we can get these things we want. And it can even come with gentle, subtle bonuses to developers that make it easier for them to pencil out in exchange for offering real amenities to our community.
So I feel like we're sitting on two issues here. One is perhaps tweaking where those zone boundaries are, which is more, I think, germane to this item itself. And the other one is maybe saying, hey, staff, we'd love for you guys to try to think of an incentive program we could also use maybe as an overlay for these areas to help really take advantage of them. Is that about right? Sound correct?
Yeah, I'm on board with the stationary plan. I think it's great. I think it's in line with what the direction
We just need to not waste it.
I think it'd be great to, even take it a step further.
So that being said, do we, Jessica, need to suggest what boundaries we think there should be, or do we just move it on to council with recommendations that that's something they should address?
I think you can move it on with just a recommendation of where you would suggest tweaking the boundary line.
Is it specific enough to just say, put it through the backyards and not the front yards, or do you actually want us to tell you which yards?
No, we understand what you mean. You're
Okay.
talking about the VLDR node, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I actually looking more closely, I think it's that right next to 2625 southwest corner section. You have MDR on that cul-de-sac bulb. That actually probably is more significant of an impact if all of that got developed and they were putting MDR out onto that cul-de-sac bulb than the LDR versus VLDR along that other cul-de-sac.
Well, the LDR2 just below that also is on a street.
Same idea,
Same
yeah.
idea. So that could be expanded, maybe MDR slightly contracted.
Yeah.
Some
This
shit.
takes a lot of work. I totally understand. And we have, I think, 3 more of these coming. I just think that's an important aspect of this that we could solve up front rather than potentially creating some poor dynamics into the future when these do actually get redeveloped.
Okay, then are we ready for a motion along with a recommendation that the boundaries of the zones be reevaluated to avoid putting them down the middle of streets?
I'm comfortable with that being
Okay.
the language that we send them on with. Don't put your boundaries down the middle of the streets.
If possible. There might be a place where they have to, right? And I guess on the right, commercial MDR, that's fine, but in the residential zones.
Sorry, can I ask one more just clarifying question? Maybe this is for Bill. But to that amenity comment, we have this River Parkway Trail area. It's not highlighted in any way on the new maps. I assume that's still protected. That will stay what it is. That's a pretty significant amenity for the area as well, especially how it connects to so many other parts of the city. So as long as that's protected and okay.
Okay, who wants to make the motion?
I would be happy to.
Okay.
All right, I would like to make a motion that the planning commission recommend approval to the municipal council to rezone approximately 39 acres of land in the 2230 North Station area to VLDR, LDR, MDR, and SC3 as per the 2230 North Station area plan future land use map, with the caveat that they reevaluate the boundaries of the zones so that they don't go through the center of the streets, as we've discussed.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on the motion? Joel?
Not necessarily on the motion, but just also a request from staff that we could maybe look at an overlay amenity point system for the TOD zones.
Great. Okay, let's go ahead and start our voting on my left.
Aye.
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 And I'll vote aye, so the item passes unanimously.
I wanted, before you move on,
Mhm.
since Joel's recommendation was for the TOD zones and this is not being proposed as a TOD zone, maybe all of these
Stationary.
station
plan.
area plan zones,
Yeah.
station area overlay or
Thank
something
you.
like
Yeah,
that,
that
right?
correction.
That's what you
Yeah.
meant? Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay, let's go to item 2. BYU requests project plan approval for the demolition and reconstruction of the BYU Administration building in the public facilities zone located approximately at 530 East, 1230 North. And Nancy is going to present that for us.
Hello. So, yeah, this is where the current administration building is. And they are just proposing to take it down and redo it with a nice I or H instead of the X. That's the landscape plan. Obviously, these are some of the elevations and they look beautiful. I think the main thing that the discussion we wanted to get to was specifically about parking. So the current building is approximately 110,000 square feet. And the new one is going to be 156,000 square feet distributed across 4 floors. So historically, our parking ratio has been, for office space, it's been 1 space per 250 gross square feet. We have always kind of
staff has questioned this ratio because it also is requiring parking for bathrooms and stairwells and reception areas and other things like that that are not necessarily occupied by a person all the time. So when we are doing our rewrite with chapter 14, we're going to be suggesting that a ratio in the new zoning ordinance be based on net rather than the gross square footage. Additionally, and then you can also see, it's hard to really tell where the people that work in this building park, because there is a lot that's just to the north of them. I know that in that lot to the north, there's 290 parking spaces. I have no idea to the west, I didn't count, or to the east of that building, but those are also places that people can park. The other thing that is also important to know, because we've looked up, and this I have to put on these glasses for. So this is showing the ratio of students, faculty to stalls. And at the very top, you have the specific numbers across that. BYU is at 0.46. University of Utah is at 0.25, and Utah State is at 0.37. Then this graph across the bottom is showing other colleges outside, universities, colleges outside of Utah. And so BYU is the second to last one. And you can tell from that, that one, it's from that graph also that they are parking at a higher rate than a lot of other universities. So because of these reasons, staff is okay with the parking ratio that they are asking for. And we are just recommending approval for the project. So if you have any specific questions for me.
Great, thanks, Nancy. My colleague described it as moving from an X-Wing to a TIE fighter, so I guess we've joined the dark side.
There we go.
Good. Any questions for staff?
Yes.
Yeah, let's go with John first.
So a couple on that. So going from 110 to 156,000 square feet is around a 42% increase in volume. Do you know what the net on gross, what the net increase in square foot is going to be?
I do not. BYU might be able to answer that specifically.
Okay, I'm surprised that staff recommends with the 42% increase, no additional parking, because my impression has been, I don't have the data on this, my impression is that parking is an issue on the campus right now. So to increase the volume, increase the capacity of the building, not increase any campus parking feels like an odd decision. So just because it compares with other norms is not a good reason for us to change if there's a need there now, is it?
Well, and I'll let BYU answer that. It's kind of been my understanding that there is not a big ratio of employees that are hired, more employees that are hired, and those specific parking lots are for staff. They are not for students. So it wouldn't, I don't know how many employees are going to be in the new building compared to the old. And I don't see that BYU is adding a lot more full-time positions.
Let me answer your question. The last couple of years prior to the administration building being moved to the Wasatch campus, there have almost always been available parking spots in those lots on the northwest corner there during the day, like from morning through afternoon. So I don't know if that was a fluke for the few times that I actually witnessed that, but it seemed like a good indication that it was the underground parking that people were fighting for and the life science building parking that people were fighting for, but not those lots that are on the periphery.
Yeah, the south side's a lot harder than the north side.
Yeah.
My experience has been it's really hard to park there after like 10 a.m.
Okay.
Even so.
Okay.
it's
I'm
worth-
sorry I interrupted you. Were you done with your question? Because I have a question. Is that
You
okay?
may go.
If you use the net measurement rather than the gross measurement for parking, how many stalls would they be required?
That's a good question, because even though that's what we might be changing to, we did not ask BYU to kind of provide
Okay.
us a number of saying, this is our gross square foot area, and this is what would be our net of what office. the number
Okay.
of
And then
offices.
my second part of that is, I asked you this earlier. What were the reasons that we had in our previous meeting for allowing the parking reduction that they asked for at the Wasatch campus?
So I
Did you look into
re-listened to
that?
that today. Yes. I
Okay.
did. And it was actually, so there was a let's see, I'll go back to my notes. It was decreased by 25 spaces, which was 6%. But they were bringing 250 employees over there, and there was approximately 300 and something.
So still more spots than employees was our reasoning.
Well, you guys said, there was even some question on, should we change the parking lot to allow employees? And people said, no. If they have extra parking spaces, let's keep them as extra parking spaces, because they were saying, well, aren't you over parking? You guys said, aren't you over parking this
Okay.
lot? But obviously we did not reduce any amount further at that Wasatch.
Campus.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And then I guess heads up to BYU, those would be useful numbers to have to know how many employees you're trying to park with the new building. Because if that hasn't changed, that would be useful to know.
Any other questions for staff? We good? Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
We'll go ahead and invite the applicant forward at this time. You'll have 15 minutes to give your presentation.
Thank you. And can I bring more than myself up at once?
Sure, it's up to you.
Yep, come on up. My name is Matt Giles. I'm from Cedar Hills.
Nathan Summers, Mapleton, Utah.
Travis Dance, Spanish Fork.
And we're all employees of Brigham Young University and their physical facilities department. Thank you for hearing us on this administration building, and just to answer some of your questions as we're going through. The administration building was an old building. Seismically, it was not fit. Earthquake wise, it was one of our worst buildings we had on campus. And so administration for years had wanted to look at replacing the building, but right now is when we wanted to do it. As you look at the old building, we have increased in square footage size. But if you ever went in the old administration building, went into the restrooms in different places, it was very, very tight. The doors were very skinny. There was no room to get into those. And so as we rebuild, and we're rebuilding to the new codes from 40, 50 years ago, the size is increasing. Just your plain thickness of the walls from the outside is thicker because of your insulation values and different things like that. So as you walk into the new building, it'll be more open, more areas, but the actual, I think she had stated that our full-time employee count is not changing throughout campus. We are rearranging a few things from different buildings, but we are not adding more full-time employees to campus. I think we have a couple of questions. Nathan, do you want to go through any of the square footages that she had?
Sure. So we did come prepared with the net. The total net change difference in the building is about 15,000 square feet. But those employees are coming from, depending on how familiar you are with campus, the Wilkinson Center and coming north. So again, total number of employees will stay the same. Total number of students is the same. We're limited on our growth there. Were there other questions?
I'm just going through the SB. She said we have 290 stalls just north. The MOA parking lot is 584. That's a bigger one for our visitor parking lot, and the Hinckley Center parking lot, 358. I think those are some of the numbers that someone had asked. We continue to look for ways to improve transportation on campus, just with UVX, just working with Provo City on and UVX on donating the land for the new UVX stations on 9th East. We still have our ride program with the buses systems that come through that is very heavily used. We're always looking for ways to improve the transportation for campus.
Anything else you have, Chairman? Some of the other things BYU has done to try to improve our transportation around campus, because we're always trying to improve there, is we now allow rideables on campus. At one point, years ago, we only allowed bicycles. We now allow electric scooters, skateboards, rollerblades, etc., in hopes that reduces the number of students and potential faculty that are driving campus. One of the other things we've done recently is we've created some covered rideable parking for about 250 rideables to try to encourage that on campus. Some of the other things we've done is over the last 8 years, we've increased our parking stall count across campus by roughly 2,000 stalls. Just trying to find ways to get ease the transportation issues on campus. Any other questions?
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Yeah, John.
Yeah, so a couple of questions. If there's around, I didn't get the number of employees. You said around 15,000 square foot extra that'll be coming from typically the Wilkinson Center. So will they then park at the new administration building instead of the Wilkinson Center? So the parking will be needed there instead?
Potentially. So the lot in front of the MOA is also an employee lot. So we expect that there'll be some shifting of parking. As we bring the new arts building on, we'll also have another employee lot there. So we just see it slowly cascading, and people are like water, right? It'll level out to find the lot that fits their needs.
So with some of the improvements that you mentioned you've been doing over the years, have you seen a net decrease or net increase in the demand for parking on campus?
I would say that we've seen an increase from certain demographics. We are finding students that are more well off are going to the single bedroom apartments, bringing a car, sometimes two. So I'd say the demand has gone up for that style of student. For our freshmen, we're trying to encourage them to live on campus, and that version of the student isn't bringing a vehicle as much as they have in the past because they're on campus provided with all the amenities they need.
So net, it's been an increase though?
I don't have good data on that, but I would say overall there's a chance that it is.
Okay, Daniel?
Yeah, how do you account for parking for visitors from off campus, people unaffiliated with the university, the public, for the various events that happen on campus, anywhere from the Marriott Center to the MOA to the Harris Fine Arts Center to performance events? How do you account for that?
So we do have 2 large visitors parking stalls on campus. Another thing that we do is our controlled camp or parking areas that require a certain permit or designation to park there. Those actually expire at 4 p.m. Is that it?
Depends on the lot, but more or less.
So a lot of those lots actually open up to public parking in the evenings. They aren't enforced by permit.
And then have you ever coordinated with Provo City in terms of sharing parking data of how many students bring cars to campus? I know when I attended undergrad out of state, and there was a requirement that you told the school whether you were bringing a car or not. Do you guys collect that data? And if so, have you thought it? If you don't, have you considered collecting that data and then sharing it with Provo cities so that we can coordinate our plans to be more effective for the community?
So yeah, we require any students or faculty, anyone that brings a car to campus other than visitors, to register their vehicle. So we have data on how many vehicles are registered. I can share that we probably have 200 student stalls that are permits that are not purchased. that could be purchased. Does that make sense?
No, well, because I mean,
Sorry,
you're saying
2,000.
you do that for people who want to park on campus, and I get that,
Correct.
but I'm talking students who bring cars
And don't park on campus.
and not park on campus.
Yeah, we don't
I
have
mean,
that.
do they bring
enforced.
students bringing cars to
Yeah.
Provo?
We don't have data on that, no.
Have you considered collecting that data?
We have not. I can take that back and we can discuss it at the committee for sure.
Yeah, I think it'd be really helpful in terms of community cooperativeness and in our planning efforts. It's something we always we don't have enough data on when we do zonings and rezones for housing and have any figures on, well, how many students can we expect will actually bring a car or have a car
Yeah.
as we plan, these high density areas and stuff. Go ahead.
So just to follow up on that real quick, that's an interesting stat though. You're saying that you have 2,000 or 2,000 parking stalls essentially that don't have a permit issued for them.
Correct.
So, I work on the south side of campus and parking down there is terrible. So it's more of a distribution than a total number kind of issue, right?
I agree.
Okay. Thanks. Lisa?
Okay, so like in my head, I want to say there's plenty of parking for the ASB, but I feel like I need a compelling reason to grant an exception to the rule, even though we've discussed that maybe the rule is excessive or not excessive depending on who you are. So what I want to know is, it sounds like numerically, the number of employees specifically from this building are less than the number of spots within close proximity. And so there's plenty of parking available. So what are you doing to give us a compelling reason to grant that exception? Like, it looks like it'll pencil out, but still it's not what's allowed. So how do we grant you the exception? So my questions for you are things like, how many of those stalls directly north of the ASB would be designated for visitor parking? Because that's the building where you would most likely have non-permitted visitors coming to ask questions or go on tours or whatever. And is there any bike parking? I know the covered lot is down by the Humanities building, right? The Jesse Knight building, the new covered spots for the rideables.
There were 3 locations we did.
But the one that's closest to the ASB, would that be that one?
It would be the one right south of the Talmadge building, or in the
Right.
Talmadge building. I wish I had a pointer, sorry. Bottom left corner of the red square, there's a covered bike area currently, other side.
By the Talmadge building? It's covered?
Sorry.
No, I think it is the
I thought it was
JKB.
I thought it was a Jesse
JKB,
Knight building.
yeah.
Correct, JKB,
That's
sorry.
the closest.
Okay, and it's on the northeast corner of that building, right?
Yeah, right next
So it's
to it.
really close to the ASB that you've got that new covered lot. Do you have anything planned for the north side to get people coming from that direction that would give an incentive for people to not drive their cars that are going to the administration building?
We are, so just to be clear, that particular bike covering isn't new. That's been there a little while.
It's been a couple of years. Yeah.
We do have bike parking just west of the ASB.
But it's an open lot.
It's an open lot.
I'm just thinking of it like for an employee, maybe it's more likely that it would be an e-bike getting them to work because they don't want to be sweaty when they get there or whatever. So I'm trying to think along the lines of if you had a visitor coming in to ask admission questions or take a campus tour, those would be your likely visitor spots that you would need to provide. And then a student who doesn't want to park on campus but needs to come to work out a bill or whatever, you would want them to be able to come even though they're a student and park in your visitor spot for that purpose. And maybe you do it like the Bean Museum where they have to come in and get a tag so they're not manipulating the visitor spot. But if you had proximal visitor spots and proximal covered or protected or lockup areas for employee bikes and vehicles, then I would feel more comfortable saying, yeah, you're going to be able to accommodate the need from that particular building within very close proximity to your building.
I'll address the visitor parking. Can we go to the other slide that had the colored lots? So in front of the Hinckley building, we have visitor parking there. Yeah, go back to that.
That was it, Sandy.
And then in the MOA, we have a big visitor lot.
Might be easier to use if you need it.
Perfect. Thank you, Bill. Perfect. So here we have visitor parking for the Hinckley. We also have time stalls right in this area, just north of the ASB. That's where visitors would come in to ask questions. Also, the pink lot is a visitor lot. So that's how we plan on accommodating visitors coming to the ASB. These two north lots, we plan to only have employees parking in. Just for reference, the blue is employee parking, if that's helpful.
And I think when you asked the question, it's what parking lots do you consider part of the ASB, and it's really all around. And so there's probably 1,000 stalls around the ASB.
Those are also the stalls for anywhere else on campus too, because you don't have any sort of inside of campus parking, right?
No, we're
Other than parking structure.
parking structure, yes.
Any other questions? Matt?
So I also work on campus, and I don't see this as a numbers problem, but it is a proximity consideration, right? There are lots of parking spaces, but they're not approximate for students or for faculty. So I would commend you on the white buses. I don't know if there might be a more technical name than that for those, but right, the other things that are getting students and faculty moving around campus, even if their parking space isn't exactly proximate to where they want to go. My question though is clearly, and we've seen it a little bit on the recent creamery construction, the arts building, now on this. Can you talk to us a little bit about during construction and how you address some of that? I know in this case, you don't need it so much because they all moved away.
Yeah.
But it is a concern. It does create some havoc around pedestrian movement, bike movement, car movement on campus. I'd just like to hear a little bit more about any thoughts on during the act of construction.
Sure. So this lot is the only lot we're taking out during construction. It's about 150-ish stalls. And then we've created pedestrian access around the construction site on the south side of the MOA, since we had to disrupt that sidewalk. So there should be ways coming from both the Tanner Building Way and the MOA / where the ride drops off, the white buses, to access Central Campus.
And I would say that when we do construction projects, sometimes we go through and change the signs, and we change the signs from a Y lot to an A lot or to a G lot. And so during construction, sometimes we do temporary signage to get things in a different order to make different, so people can park in different places.
Okay, Joel.
So looking at this chart here, we have the most parking of any university in the state. And you said we have about 2,000 student stalls unused. That sounds like an overparking issue to me. I imagine BYU keeps pretty close tabs on parking needs, whether from students or faculty. It also sounds like maybe there's a culture shift. You're describing more well-off students driving 3 or 4 blocks from their apartments to class. Are we making parking too easy and it's promoting a driving culture among students? I mean, what's happening there? We're offering more parking than anywhere else in the state, and we're still having parking issues, but are we really?
That's a good question. Very good question. I don't see it as a number of parking stalls this year. I think it's a proximity issue, as was described earlier. These students are coming out of high school, and their high school parking lot, it was, 100 feet from the front door, and that's what they're used to. They come here and they have to walk across campus. It's just different.
I mean, I attended school out of state before moving here, and you were required to leave your car at home until you were an upperclassman. So something seems to be shifting, and I'm wondering why we're providing so much, and then we're also concerned that, I don't know, if there's no change in employees at this building, I don't see it as any change in parking demands, and I don't really see any need to be adding more when we're already, it appears to be overparked in terms of the rest of the state.
And we are trying to keep our green space throughout campus, which is a big thing for us.
Yeah.
Sorry, one other comment. Some of these comments are clearly tainted by the fact that we've dealt with as a commission and the city staff a lot with complaints about parking. So you're feeling some of that angst a little bit about those other issues that are carrying over to what I think is a non-issue on this building that we're actually talking about. So I guess because we don't get you guys here very often, I would say if you have any influence on neighboring apartment complexes, units, on how you help, like what Joel's referring to, and some of these cultural dynamics, there are buildings that we know about that are underparked, but the streets are packed because the landlords, the management company is facilitating that. They're charging them too much to park on site, and so then they're parking on the street. Whatever influence you have to help those issues, I would say please exert it in whatever positive way you can to help what's a larger scale issue that I don't think is an issue for this building personally.
I think what
I wanna-
Nathan, yeah.
I wanted to add to that as well. I talked to somebody recently at the UTA opening for the Creamery stop, and they said that they had been talking to people on campus about sharing parking with residences south of campus in particular, and that fell through in some way. So I just would encourage you to talk to more people about that, and also to talk to the director of student wellness and the what's it called? Sustainability. So Nathan Ormsby, he's actually in my bishopric, and Bremen Leak. Yeah. And I've talked to them individually, and I think that there are a lot of overlaps in your goals, that if you would work together to get some of these things done and work with the city, we could actually solve a lot of these problems. But a lot of it is, the barrier is that the separation between BYU and the city, and then the separation between your jobs. So just, I want to emphasize that as well, that I would love to see some sort of parking sharing, especially in the neighborhood south of campus, so that we can get moving on getting more housing down there for the students, because the big issue is parking. That is the big issue. And so I just want to second kind of what Joel was saying. It seems like you need more incentives for bikes and other rideables, and more disincentive for parking.
Hey, Joel.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback off that, the university where I did my graduate schooling actually coordinated with the local transit provider, with local DOT, and it was, they said, these are our parking demands. We're a commuter school. We have 14,000 students. This is how many stalls we have to have. If we build one structure, but you start giving us more regular bus routes, you start giving us better bike parking, you start giving us all these different facets. And then the city was able to collaborate together and reduce that demand, because people were parking, they weren't paying for parking pass, and they're parking in the neighborhoods around campus. I think if we had a collaboration with the city and BYU, I think there's a lot of really positive steps and actions that could happen. I mean, there's state funding available. There's state grants for these sort of active transportation, multimodal programs. There's county funding from the MAG, Mountain Land Association of Governance. I think there's all sorts of creative solutions, but it would be great to have BYU come to the table and work with the city so we can start developing those kind of partnerships.
It's an interesting thought, but BYU already provides passes for every employee, every student, and their families, right? So I don't know.
I feel like
What
we
you can
need
do.
to figure out what the missing link is. What's preventing them from using those?
Yeah.
Because I use mine like it's chocolate. I love the fact that I don't have to drive, but there's people that just won't make that step, that won't allow themselves to be dropped off here and walk there. Or we got to figure out, how do we get approximate stop to the Tanner building so that those people aren't all driving because there's not a transit stop for them? Or how to, so if you can figure out where the holes are, whether it be communicating with students about options, and really pushing transit, having a transit day where everyone tries it out, or whatever, fun activities with the wellness department or whatever, all the way over to having incentives for not parking on campus, or prizes for whoever used their transit pass the most, or the options are unlimited. But I also like the idea of, please don't bring a car to, we won't sell you a parking. I guess if you don't sell them a parking pass unless they're an upperclassman, then they park in the neighborhood. So does that really solve the problem? No, I don't know. Just thinking outside the box on how we can cross those borders of communication, educate our students and faculty, and still make it convenient for people to get to campus. and I'm with Mr. Wheelwright. I don't think any of us have a problem with the parking provided for the administration building. But this gives us an opportunity to just, I guess my secondary part, not only is it an opportunity to talk to you about the other problems that we have with parking, but bigger than that, it's still an exception to the code requirements. And so if we're going to grant an exception, I feel like we need to have legitimate findings to say, this is why we did it for you, and we're not going to do it for the next person who asks or for the next BYU project necessarily. I feel like numbers for numbers, it works out with employees, but if we go by the formula that's in the books, we need to have a reason why we're granting this exception. So I think it's important for us to come up with that. If we're really feeling comfortable with this, we need to make sure we can say that.
Yeah, and for me, that's what I was trying to get to. My point is just I understand they do collaborations with the UTA and the parking pass or bus passes, transit passes, but for me, it just seems that there's a dearth of data on, how many cars are coming on campus, how many are parked, how many are bringing them. Is there a transportation survey for new students, incoming freshmen, continuing students? It just seems there's just a complete lack of data, and if there ever became that there was data that would be shared with the city so that we could collaborate.
And maybe
more.
if information for incoming students includes please don't bring your car to campus because we have this, and this that will meet your needs. You don't need to have it. Maybe they won't bring it, and that will help on that at the beginning end of things.
Or one or the other. You either survey and you get the data, and you do address please don't bring a car to campus. But I mean, kids are going to bring.
I think we're getting into our discussion away from these fine gentlemen standing in front of us. But I would like to ask a question for clarification before we have them sit down. I think this is either for Bill or Nancy. My read of the staff report is not that we're granting an exception. It's that there's no rule currently in this part of the code. And the 250, 250 gross square feet per parking space is a comparable code, but not this. Can somebody help me are we granting an exception of any kind?
The code doesn't have a standard for a university. It does have a standard for an office building. The office buildings seem to be most comparable to an administration building, but that may or may not be valid, but that's the closest thing we have to a standard in our zoning ordinance.
But does it apply in what they're in what's the zone, the
public facilities or something?
That's probably the standard we would use in this case, since that's the closest fit we have. The staff's bigger concern or thing that gives us comfort with this is that gross versus net. We have other parking standards in the same section that are based on net, and we have others that are based on gross, and it has never made sense to me why some are one and some are the other. I would prefer to throw all the gross requirements out and base them on net.
So
I would love to hear in this case, how many square feet is the net building? That would be helpful.
And are we granting an exception as part of this process to parking, or because it's not specific to I'm not seeing the public facilities zone, is that not really specifically on the table right now?
I wouldn't say you're granting an exception. I would say you're interpreting the ordinance the way you would like to interpret it.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more question.
Okay, John.
Different subject. What's the name of the building going to be?
We do not know that, actually. Well, I think right now it's the administration building, but we don't know if it'll be back the Abraham Smith building or what it will be, but still it's the administration building.
Just want to be on record that I do not appreciate removing the name of Abraham O. Smoot from the building.
Okay.
There's a long history with him and the benefit he provided the university, and to lose that would be at some cost.
Okay. That's good to know.
Do you have a timeline?
Timeline for building?
Yep.
So we're just tearing down the building. We have that permit. And once we get this permit, we're probably about 2.5 years.
Great.
So 2028 summer is what we think right now, but there's still some things we got to work through.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much. We'll now open the meeting for public comment. Same rules apply as the last item. You'll be able to make one comment, and at the end of your time, you'll hear a ding and your microphone will be muted. With that, we'll go ahead. Are there any neighborhood chairs here to comment on this item? Okay, we'll open it to the general public. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. Please come forward at this time if you would like to comment.
Hi, I'm Eric Chase again. I live in Provo. I just wanted to comment. I think we kind of lost the idea of parking when we're actively like cheering against job creation in our university in the name of preserving parking spaces in the middle of a campus that's isolated, that has thousands of empty parking spots around us. No one is more incentivized to provide parking than the university is. And if they say they have thousands of empty spaces, and the impact, even if they didn't provide enough parking, there would be no impact on the neighborhoods around us. This is, I don't know, a mile away or more. There's so many other parking spaces in between where this would, exceed the campus. I think it's crazy that we have to actively root against jobs in for our biggest employer to provide and make sure we have extra parking. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments on this item?
Hi, my name is Jacob Matthews, a student actually at BYU and a Salem City resident. I think the building looks phenomenal. I think it's going to be great. I'm excited for faculty on campus to be able to have something a little new. As a student, you always love to have something new. I think proximity and parking to me isn't an issue about how many spots there are. It's an issue about where the parking is assigned to and to whom. I think from a student's perspective, I park always south of campus. My classes are at 9:30 because I usually have to get to campus by 7. This morning, south of campus, a third of the lot is full because all the apartment complexes do not have significant parking for the students who bring their cars. So I actually don't think it's always a campus parking issue. It's that you have a significant overflow of off-campus apartment taking up all of the exterior parking for students. So you actually see an influx you have about 35,000 students, 31% are out of Utah residents, which means everyone who's a visitor for that student is going to be out of state. They won't be bringing a bike with them to visit campus. They'll be coming in a car. Secondly, you have about 10,000 employees to the 35,000 students on campus. So I think it's just really taking a good look at all the parking and maybe just redesigning all of it to the proximity that meets the new standards. I think this parking map, someone would need to correct me, is pretty old and has not been adjusted drastically, like from a drastic viewpoint, especially with a lot of the new construction. So I think my last point is disincentivizing people to drive. People take the UTA because they have to, not because they want to. So I don't know a student that wants to take UTA.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments on this item? Not seeing any, we'll close the public comment portion and bring it back to the commission for discussion. Thoughts, where are we at?
I don't have a problem with this request. I just wanted to make sure we had a substantial reason to say it is okay. We've talked a lot in the past with the music building and the fine arts building about proximal parking, and I still feel very strongly about that, but I do feel like it's less of a problem to get employees to park in the Marriott Center and walk over than it is, or to park on the furthest ASB lot space and walk down, than it is to get a little old grandma to a concert that she bought tickets for. So I don't have a problem with it. I just want to make sure that we don't have somebody from another big employer come to us and say, well, they can park in this parking lot and we have plenty. So I want to make sure that we have our reasons soundly established.
Other comments? Yeah.
I think I agree with all that and I'm in support of this. I also want to be careful about attributing certain things from the past or future to this approval, which I don't think is necessarily needed here. But I think they've heard the message. I think we hope there's a bigger viewpoint and a larger perspective about kind of all around campus that's happening as part of this. And this is the most protected and kind of insulated from all of those issues of any building they're going to be working on. So I'm in support of this, and I hope that further discussions both at the city with them, with BYU with local residents and landlords and management companies. I think all of that is the only way we'll really move the needle across the board.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I work on the south side of campus, so I do know it's tight down there. But if you look, it obviously is tight down there. There's not nearly as much parking on the south side as there is on the north side. And this is right smack dab in the middle. And as was commented, isolates it from the outside, right? Whereas on the south side, it tends to spill into the neighborhoods, and the neighborhoods tend to spill into it. And there's more of an interface there than we have at this particular building.
Yeah,
Joel?
this one will have less of an impact because of its
Trickle
location.
into the Wendy's. Yeah, and I just want to also commend, I know BYU has done some really progressive forward thinking things like the UVX partnership and UTA passes is excellent. I got a ticket for riding my longboard about 10 years ago on campus. So I know things are changing. I think there's really great stuff happening too. And yeah, I just would love to see some collaboration with folks of the city so that we can help solve some of these pain points for the city and the campus. Yeah.
And for students, because I mean, they're getting booted, they're getting tickets, things like that as well. I think that's something that looking at, I mean, what we do know about the south of campus issues that people may not drive to campus, but they'll still bring a car. And that's one of the things that I feel like is we need to solve. So anyway, this has been a good discussion. And I think, I'm fine with this too.
I mean, maybe it's an education component. Maybe people don't know you can hop on the UVX from campus and get to a block away from Smith's. Like maybe there's just some awareness that needs to be made. I don't know, but yeah.
Okay, are we ready for a motion?
Do we feel comfortable with feeling like we have proved that that there's findings for this, that it meets the requirements of the zone?
Yes.
If we feel comfortable, then we don't need to find any. So, okay.
Okay, who would like to make a motion?
I'll go for it.
Yeah.
I move that we approve this BYU request for project plan approval for the demolition and reconstruction of the BYU Administrative Building in the Public Facilities Zone located at approximately 530 East, 1230 North.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? Okay, we'll begin voting on my left.
Aye.
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 And I'll vote aye, and so item 2 passes unanimously. Okay, I'll now read items 3 and 4 in together as they are related. I hope I'm pronouncing this name right. Andrade Christensen request concept plan approval for a 4.17 acre mixed use development in a proposed CG and VLDR zone located approximately at 1560 South and 1100 West, as well as item 4. We have that one. There we go. Andrade Christensen requests a zone map amendment from the A1.5 and RA zones to the CG and VLDR zones to develop a 4.17 acre mixed-use development located approximately at 1560 South and 1100 West. And Aaron Ardmore will present this for us.
Okay, thank you, Planning Commission. So first I will introduce the kind of the area that we're looking at. As you can see, we're out here on the west side along Lakeview Parkway. The next map over is the general plan map. The areas in that kind of light yellow are stated as residential land uses in the general plan. green is agricultural or open. And then the orange bubble there promotes mixed use. So I'll get to that in a second. The zone map on the right shows you the existing zoning on the property, how it's kind of split between A1 and RA zone. But it also shows you recent developments with zoning around the property, specifically to the left or to the west across 1100 West. You may have remembered this one came across your agenda a couple years ago, but that's been put into place now with a mixed use of zoning with LDR, R1, and CG. So the proposal before you today is to kind of match that on the other side of 1100 West. So using that mixed use bubble to justify a general commercial zone for over 3 acres of the property, and then the VLDR zone on the north end provides that mix of uses, not only a mix of residential and commercial, but as the concept plan will show, a mix of commercial uses in itself. So getting down to the details of the concept plan that's tied to this rezone, the VLDR zone is about 1/3 of an acre. It could provide a twin home. The model they've shown in the concept plan is a twin home with 4 parking spaces per unit and accessed off of 1560 South, where the other residential uses are in the area. The commercial zone, the CG zone, in this concept, they've really pushed an idea of 2 different lots. Lot 1 against Lakeview Parkway is a larger lot that could encompass a hotel or a gas and convenience store, something that takes a lot more space. While lot 2, kind of the middle of the property as it is, could provide up to 7 smaller retail uses, service uses, kind of those neighborhood services that are kind of repeatedly asked for out here on the west side. I think there's a high demand for them, and this would be the right direction, help users come in to property that's already zoned, remove that entitlement step for them, hopefully. So that is the concept before you. The rezone itself, we believe, falls in line with the general plan. We believe it provides a good mix of uses, provides a commercial node in an area that the city desires it through their general plan and neighborhood area plans. And we support the approval of this project. I think that's all I have, unless there's any questions for me.
Okay, thank you. Matt?
All the property to the south across Lakeview is city-owned and preserved open space. Can you remind us what's happening across the street?
Not all of it is city-owned, but it is in the city's eyes in the general plan designated as kind of undevelopable.
Okay.
We don't anticipate running city services across the street, all across the Lakeview Parkway down there. We've met with several people just over the last year that had the desire to do that and have had to unfortunately turn them away because of those decisions that we have been made.
Okay, Joel?
I have a similar question about the other properties around this one, but not across Lakeview. What are those? Are those just agricultural right now? And what is the plan for them in the future?
Yeah, so you can see there's a sliver between what's known as Heron's Landing.
Right there.
Heron's Landing is there, that subdivision that hasn't been started with construction, but the streets and utilities are there. Between that and this, there is a sliver of agricultural and residential agriculture still. We would anticipate that 1660 South to continue westward to provide more access to more housing. What type of housing, we don't know, but we'd anticipate that to be residential use there. And the west side of 1100 West, I spoke about. So yeah, it kind of is what it is around it.
Okay, Joel?
Is there spillover parking from the south lot into the north? It looks like there's about 80 stalls for 10,000 feet of 10,000 square feet of commercial.
So yeah, so in their concept, in lot 2, which holds those 7 kind of retail units, there's about 104 spaces just on that lot. That would be more than what would be demanded for the square footage that's shown. Not knowing the end users, I think they've kind of provided a margin of error buffer there to be safe. And again, with the lot 1, if it is a hotel, those are parked at 1 per room. So 104 spaces could provide 104 keys. But if that turns into a convenience store or something else, we'd have to look at that through the project plan.
And the city's version or stance on mixed use, in my mind, mixed use is usually blending the uses within one building. Here,
Right.
we're still seeing it pretty segregated, heavy commercial townhome. Or
Yeah,
townhome.
I think we'll get there. I think we'll get to more vertical mixed use and mixed use on the same property. I think this starts to create that environment, being able to have a more of a walkable retail service within a neighborhood. Kind of starts us to get us there. The vertical mixed use we're seeing more in our downtown environment at this point.
Okay, we'll go Lisa and then John.
I want to know, I'm assuming that the city recommended VLDR instead of LDR in collaboration with these people. Can you tell me the logic for why it was so low?
Just with the amount of space that's dedicated to the residential use through this concept, I think the LDR was the better fit.
Like with frontage and setbacks and stuff? Okay. I also wanted to know why twin homes instead of 2 detached units. Like, why make it less desirable instead of more desirable if both would be allowed in the zone?
I think that's still an option, honestly. As we see with these rezones, unless it's really tied down in a development agreement, we see change from a concept plan to when it comes back to you as a project plan. So I think there's still an opportunity to provide 2 single-family detached lots there.
Okay.
And have that privacy and private yards. But in the concept, they just chose to show a twin home.
Okay. As I read through it, and it says that it doesn't promote the ADUs and it doesn't have single family units. I guess they still are single family, but anyway, I just thought, why not build 2 detached units with small lots? And that would be just as good of a buffer and be a more desirable product.
And then you could have ADUs, right?
Yeah. And you could also have ADUs. So anyway.
I think it'd still be an option for them.
Another question in here, would the rezone exclude land that is currently being allowed for agricultural use? Is grazing not considered an agricultural use?
It is.
Okay.
More recent visits out there, it doesn't look like there is.
It's not actively.
Agricultural uses on there.
So you feel like that falls within the parameter of we're not actually protecting an agricultural use anymore?
Yeah, I don't think we're forcing agricultural use out with a
Okay.
specific request.
More questions. Is there a traffic light in the plan at 1100 West and Lakeview Parkway? I thought I remember that from the transportation
I think when
master
it's
plan.
warranted, but David Day.
I think those are usually reactionary, right?
Yeah.
Once the traffic
Well,
order-
and then while he's
Right.
coming up, let me ask this one. Have you had any feedback from that property owner in the top right corner about how they feel about having this adjacent to their property? Like, are they pushing back at all?
I surprisingly haven't. I think the applicant could speak to that.
Okay.
I'm sure they've had those conversations.
All right. Traffic light at 1100 West and Lakeview Parkway. Is that in the transportation master plan?
It is. David Day with Public Works. As soon as that meets traffic signal warrants, a light will be put up.
Okay. So people's
So,
concerns about
yeah.
that would be addressed.
And we would anticipate, since we've spaced those intersections out the way we have, eventually there'll be a light at every one of those connections.
That's what I thought. Okay.
As traffic picks up.
Perfect. I think those are my questions for you. Oh, I had one more. In the relevant history, it says that the application vested in 2025. What does that mean?
So that's just when the application started. So when we verified that it's a complete application, then it started into the step review.
Okay. So that isn't some new fangled concept.
No,
of
maybe I shouldn't
time.
use that wording.
Okay.
But yes,
Thank you.
sorry.
Okay, John?
Most of my issues were covered, but does the applicant have any or any businesses that are looking to move into this? Is there any active working, do you know, to bring a hotel or a gas station or the other commercial businesses here?
I think they'll be up next and you could ask them that.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Okay, thank you very much.
you.
We'll now invite the applicant forward at this time. And you'll have 15 minutes to make your presentation.
Good evening. I think Aaron's done a wonderful job of presenting this, so I'm gonna just, if you guys have questions, ask me questions and we'll go from there.
So I had the one question, do you have applicants that are, or do you have companies, if you will, that are planning or that you're working with on this that intend to use this space?
We have talked to a lot of people. We've talked to gas stations, we've talked to credit unions, we've talked to restaurants, and we've had a lot of interest. We really haven't pushed it too far because we haven't had that zoning yet. Just like the city, when they rezoned down by the Epic Park, they turned it to so they could have these uses. We've got to have these, we've got to have the, you know.
Understood.
It's
Thank
hard
you.
to say, oh yeah, you can do this. And they're like, yeah, you know, it makes it hard. So we have been actively talking to quite a few people. I'll be honest, we'd like to have a gas station there because we didn't realize that that's what gas stations like is right, but that's what we'd like to do. And we have talked to Karen on the corner. We like Karen. She's a sweet lady.
How does she feel about your proposal? Does she have a problem with having office spaces or commercial spaces in her backyard?
She doesn't seem to. I talked to her today. She helped me put up a fence, so put up a gate. So I don't know. We haven't really, she sold us the ground. She's, yeah.
She sold you the one that you're wanting to rezone very low density?
This is her property.
Okay.
So we haven't, I mean, I think Karen's her friend. She likes to. So.
Any other questions for the applicant? Yeah, Matt?
So just digging a little deeper on this duplex idea, that's a lovely duplex, by the way. There's I'll call it a strange space. It's labeled unfinished storage, 382 square feet. That is huge. What do you anticipate that? That's full height, walkable attic space? That's future bunk room? Like what is that?
Point where it's at.
On my package, it's a later page.
It's on the second
Oh,
floor.
out the back of the townhomes. Yeah. That's just a concept that we've had. We're doing the other side. I don't know. We can change that up a little bit. That's not.
I'm not asking you to change it. I think it's
Yeah.
fantastic. I'm just curious what would actually, what we'd anticipate that actually.
I don't know.
That's all a ski storage. We need more snow if you're going to store that many ski stuff.
I wish we'd get some more snow.
I know.
Pass and
Right.
use it for-
It's airport storage, yeah.
Yeah.
My son's a senior and he says, I want to go skiing this before I leave, you know, the house. I'm like, oh, we'll get ski passes. So we get ski passes and now there's 14 inches of snow. So
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
thank you.
We'll now open the meeting to public comment. As with the past items, you will have a fixed time to speak, and then your microphone will be muted when your time is up. So if there's anyone, are there any neighborhood chairs? Okay, please come forward at this time. You'll have 3 minutes to give your comment.
Hello, my name is Brooke Barnes, and I represent the West District, and specifically, I'm a representative for the Lakewood neighborhood, and I actually live like 2 blocks away from this. So I have been gauging response. We had this presented at our last February, so almost a year ago was when we actually had this presented. So I kind of had to go back and talk to some people again. Overall response to the project has been positive. Having gas and retail options could be a nice amenity that the Lakewood neighborhood currently doesn't have, as Aaron pointed out. Residents seemed the most interested in the gas station. A few concerns have been voiced as well. One I've heard a few times is just the amount of buildings that are proposed for such a relatively small property. Some people feel like that's kind of cramming a lot into a small area. There are also concerns about the gas station potentially attracting crime. There are questions from residents about if the commercial retail would have a high turnover rate of businesses in and out, and if some commercial buildings could sit empty for a long period of time if the businesses there aren't successful. It would be helpful to know or to maybe have a better idea what kind of businesses the developer is planning to attract, and if the gas station is a for sure thing. There are also concerns about traffic. It sounds like there is a light planned just there at 1100 in Lakeview. And at the February meeting, there was talk of a traffic study, but I talked to Rachel. She hadn't seen that. I haven't seen that. So I don't know if it exists or not. And also just wanted to add, like I said, I think that this is new for our neighborhood. We've kind of been out on our own a little bit. And so all of this new development is new and exciting and a little bit nerve-wracking. It would be an adjustment, but I think overall our residents are open to the idea and are interested in, how that could benefit our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask her a question?
Yes, please.
With a commercial general zoning, like anything can pretty much, well, not any, I'm not going to say anything, that's overbroad, but a lot of things can go there. And so what specifically was the neighborhood response to a gas station? Like, no, a gas station, or we'd love to see other services there?
It was generally yes, a gas station. I think people thought that was a good idea.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I don't see anyone from the general public. Is there anyone here that I'm missing that would like to comment? Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the commission to discuss. Lisa?
I have a question for Aaron that just came to me. If the zoning was approved as general commercial for the bottom 2/3 and plus, could the site plan be adjusted to have a gas station on the corner with a hotel in the middle, followed by the very low density residential at the top, and have that still be in line with what led to the zone change?
For sure, yeah. So you will see, if the council approves the zone change, you'll see any proposals that come back.
It doesn't even have to be close to the concept plan as long as it fits the zoning, right?
Right, and with that project plan, to address some of the concerns, the project plan is the time where those traffic studies would come to make sure that access and everything is set up right for whatever the proposed use is on the site.
Okay, cool.
Matt?
So right, we're talking amongst ourselves kind of now, right? So two kind of thoughts. I guess one's kind of a recommendation. We've talked already tonight about walkability and things like that. There's nothing about this that lends itself to that, mostly because most commercial spaces have one front door, so you don't have to manage out both ends. And this has really pushed itself into the, surrounded by parking away from the street is really how this is going to be used. So I'm a little concerned about what the back looks like. I worry that we're creating a very unwalkable section, but maybe it's not walkable because there's nowhere to go anyway. So maybe that's not a big deal. But I would hope that that's something that gets considered both at the staff kind of recommendation and kind of feedback level when they're working with a potential new project like this. The other is that with so much open space to the south, the fact that the applicant can propose this is wonderful. Like, it's Lakeview and it's a big busy road, but also if you draw a radius circle, it's a half circle. Mm-hmm. So anything along this, which is the logical place to put it based on where the houses are now, but also it's a problem. That's why there's the grocery store issue has always been a problem on the west side, because you draw a circle and it doesn't work. It's the same reason Shops at Riverwoods is a little funky, because half of it's a canyon and it just doesn't quite work, the numbers of the rooftops for retail. So I'm in support of this because the applicant thinks they can make it work and this is what we want to get the ball rolling and we got to prove some concept. But I am a little concerned about how it turns its back on the street, but I'm not sure that I have a much better answer at this
I
location.
feel like that gets fixed at planning or at project plan approval, you know, where the landscape and the design and everything. And I think that's important for us to remember when it gets to that point of that walkability element and the safety element. And
but it helps them hearing it now so that they don't have to rework. It costs them money every time they rework.
That's good. I also think that the half circle versus the full circle of influence is assisted by the fact that the Epic Sports Park and the airport will play into this use. So whether it's a gas station or a hotel, those are both, you know, that's like the industrial area out by the Salt Lake Airport that has no houses around it, still thrives because it's got those customers. So that's a positive thing as well.
Daniel?
I think a part of resistance for me is a little bit the northern tip being VLDR. Like I understand it, that might be in place there because of the residential property just to the east of it. But I don't know, if there's one thing I've consistently heard in planning commission meetings and neighborhood meetings in the past year is services and commercial opportunities in the west side. And so it feels like we're, you know, kind of chopping that off and cutting that off where maybe prematurely or a little bit too early where we might not want to give that up.
Joel?
Yeah, I think kind of to our conversation earlier about the way we're bisecting the VLDR and the LDR with the station area plan. I'm kind of curious with this mixed use layout, and again, yeah, it is a concept plan. But mixed use in my mind is promoting walkability and interconnectivity, and so it does still feel very segregated and very separated. And yeah, the townhomes are kind of facing away from all this commercial, and yeah, how are we integrating all this into a mixed use development instead of mixed uses?
Any other thoughts?
No, I'll respond to Joel a little bit. That mixed use vertically is really hard. It takes a lot of density, and I don't, what are we at? 680 feet by 200 and something ish. It's not like this is a massive parcel to pull that off. So I think this, and I would still go back to this kind of radius idea. If they think they can make this work, if we say no, it could be years before anybody proposes something that they're willing to try. I think this gets the ball rolling. So I'm okay with that, but I agree it's very segregated. It's not true mixed use in the way downtown is trying to be mixed use. So calling it mixed use, I agree, is a little bit of a misnomer, but I think it speaks to keeping the residential facing residential. It keeps the commercial access and visibility all from the right sides of the streets. So there's a lot of good things going for it that I personally doesn't bother me in that regard.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I like that it's kind of stepping down away from Lakeview Parkway, and that's what it's achieving more than a mixed use. I'm actually curious with the commercial across the street as well, like how much commercial can this intersection support? I'm hopeful it can do it, but you know, it is the edge. And unfortunately, I think you need something like this because if they are going to succeed, it's going to be mostly traffic coming along Lakeview Parkway of people going home or whatever and stopping in on their way. And so, you know, it's really just not the most walkable but area, regardless of what you do here. It's not big enough to make it walkable.
Bill.
So,
That's okay.
Bill?
That's okay.
No more comment? Okay. John?
Yeah, I feel the same way that as we talk about expanding the airport, and this is right on the way to the airport and bringing some of those services into Provo, where most people bypass Provo completely when they go. It feels like this is an opportunity to provide some of that. And I agree, it's not really the walkability concerns. I don't have any walkability concerns in this area. I think most of the traffic, there'll be a little bit, but most of the traffic will be passing through on the parkway, going to and from the airport or going to and from work typically. So to bring something there whether it's a hotel to support the airport and the sports park, or it's a gas station or some other type of amenity, I think it's important for that area to start to build that area up. I'm less concerned about the loss of agriculture there.
Okay, any other comments? Yeah, Lisa?
I love what Joel said made me think that, the cutoff line for residential might make more sense if it was in line with the parcel to the east. And so instead of having those 3 additional commercial pads, having it be maybe something that came in and was a cul-de-sac of townhomes or something that could be more than 2 units. So that would be something that wouldn't be a deal breaker for me, but that would be a suggestion of maybe pushing the boundary a little bit to align with what's already there. Additionally, this would be a project plan phase thing also, but I want to say that every one of the projects along Lakeview Parkway on that north side that we've seen, we've asked them to have some sort of a sidewalk walkability area against Lakeview Parkway. So I would expect that the pedestrian facing aspect of this development would want to tie in with that. They would also have to make the improvements to Lakeview Parkway that all the others have had to make. So right here on this paper, it looks very drab, but I think the actual requirements that the city would ask them to make would really enhance some of those things that have been issues to us. So I would actually be okay with approving this. I don't particularly like this layout, but I think that the market will bring the best layout once he can actually advertise it. And my big request, if it gets passed along to the municipal council, is to maybe move the and maybe even make it LDR, but to bump that boundary down so it lines with the property to the east, if that makes sense.
Can I
Yes, Matt?
clarify a question? So you're suggesting that what's now vacant, line it up so that vacant piece with.
Well, it's not vacant. If I remember correctly from the aerial, there was a house on it. So there is one house that's up on 1560
Dan,
South
can we
that's
go
on
back
that
to the
parcel.
aerial?
But that's what you're suggesting, because I mean, what's there now is too small for a cul-de-sac unless they incorporate
And the
piece next to
lots,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you can see it here, so all the white rectangle would align with the boundary of the VLDR in my proposal. So VLDR would go down to encompass that small parcel that has the 3 commercial pads on it.
And what's vacant.
And it would line up with that same line, yeah. Which it's not really contrary to across the street, which is LDR further down. So I feel like it would make a better, instead of it just being, because if you look at the map, to the north, there's this giant church, and then to the south, there's just that one house. So unless they're planning on getting rid of all of it, in which case VLDR could eventually go across the whole thing, or LDR across the whole thing and make something bigger, it makes sense to align what they're proposing with the boundary that's already there by property and by use currently. So that was my thought, just to make that even up and be less of a little teeny island of a duplex.
This conversation reminds me of a concern I had. Maybe Aaron can answer it for us, but at times we require developers to look at the neighboring properties to make sure they're not boxing someone in and making their land essentially undevelopable. It looks like a pretty narrow stretch of land, but maybe it's wide enough. What's it look like for future development in that strip in between?
Yeah, I didn't include it in your packet, but the applicant by code had to provide a vicinity map of future potential development around him. There was a layout that can kind of continue that Heron's Landing layout up to the CG property line, and it seemed to work for the typical home sizes that would be
So it would be a medium density or low density housing development.
It would probably be more of the R1, like R16, R17.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I feel like, if I'm remembering right, it's been a little while since I've driven by there, but the streets have been in for a while, but no houses. Is that correct?
Correct. The ownership did just change, and from my understanding, they're working towards actually pulling permits. So
Okay,
might
that's
see
good to know.
progress in the next year.
Good. Okay, where do we sit? Are we ready for a motion? More discussion? Sounds like we're ready for a motion. Anyone want to make a motion on this?
So if I was proposing that the lines be changed, is that still a compatible motion? Or is that just Lisa Jensen's opinion?
You could recommend approval of the zone change with a recommendation to the city council to adjust the boundary of the, between the CG and the VLDR zones.
Even though the applicant didn't ask for that, we could make that our recommendation.
You can request that as a recommendation or a suggestion to the city council. Yeah.
Do you want to do a straw poll to see if I'm the only one who feels that way before we make that motion?
Yeah, I think that would be good. So our straw poll is how many would support the recommendation to adjust the VLDR boundary down slightly.
So that it lines up with the single family or the residential property to the
Lisa, I'd like to hear you justify why you think that's important. It's not clear in my mind why that's adding a lot of value.
The reason I feel it's important is because I feel like you're creating this outlying little two houses that are less desirable if they're the only two houses just out there on the edge. If I was just me and one other house there with a church across the street and nothing built anywhere else yet, so you don't know how it's going to unfold, I would be less likely to live there. But if you make it a little bit bigger, you can have a few more units and it feels more like a little neighborhood enclave instead of just two random units that somebody built here to call a buffer zone.
But there is one house on that bigger lot and probably more coming next to it.
Right. But if the house on the bigger lot is adjacent to commercial on its backside, then that's also a less desirable place for single family. But if we lower that line down so that it's residential straight across the boundaries, then we get a better probability of a composite project that includes both properties, all three properties instead of just two little houses on the corner. That's really my reasoning. It's just, I feel like a residential buffer zone would work better if it actually acted like a buffer zone instead of just a random thing tossed in there that isn't actually super desirable product, in my opinion.
I guess part of my point though is that the lot that has the big lot that has a single house and the long narrow lot is all coming soon, sometime as housing.
Yeah.
It's not it's a temporary island.
And in that case, if it worked out that way, it would just sort of be a taper off to a small corner.
Right.
But
I'm
was
just
my
thinking
thinking.
about the spacing there, unless, is it Karen, Kathy? I can't remember the neighbor's name. It was a K, I think. Karen. Unless Karen's going to sell to what we're labeling as VLDR, I'm not sure just making it deeper actually solves that much.
Okay. I guess that's a good
that's
reason for
my
a straw
only-
poll. So I could be the only one who thinks that it might be a good idea to have it be bigger, and I'm okay with that, if that's the case.
Yeah, I say we do a straw poll. I've always wanted to do one. We always talk about it and we never do it. So
Who's
we'll
got
just-
the hay?
We'll just do it by raise of hands. Who would support a recommendation to adjust that boundary?
Okay, there's two of us.
Seeing two hands.
Okay. So it can be something that gets passed along, but not part of the motion.
Yeah, I know several city councilors watch these meetings, so they're now aware of it.
Sorry, so I'm not opposed to it, but it's still contingent on what's happening next to it of whether it even adds value. So I just probably in support if Karen's going to sell her lot and it's all going to be housing, it probably helps. But if she's not, and there's a big single family home on a single family lot, I'm not sure it gets much out of it, but.
Okay. They can take it for whatever it is, but I don't feel compelled to argue it if Ann and I are the only ones. I included you.
Any comments on it, Anna?
Good. What seems like a good plan and kind of hedging your bets for the future, which I'm all about. So I think it's good thinking.
Okay. Okay, are we ready for a motion? We got two items to do a motion on.
Just had one more quick question. If the applicant decided they did want to do something similar to that, could they just come with another rezone at project plan time and they could show us, oh, actually, we think this works a little better with a fourplex cluster or yeah.
Yeah, you may have also planted a seed there too.
I think it's a good idea, but I also don't want to lock the property owner into a path that they haven't given a chance to explore. So,
And conceivably, if it reduces commercial, it might make the rest of the commercial not viable, would be my concern.
Okay, who wants to make a motion?
I can make one. If I remember the words. Let's see. I make a motion that we recommend approval of item 3
We actually approve or deny it. We have the power on this one.
on the concept plan.
Concept
Okay.
plan.
That we approve item 3. Andrade Christensen requests concept plan approval for a 4.17 acre mixed use development and a proposed CG and VLDR zone located approximately at 1560 south and 1100 west.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Okay, let's start voting.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll vote aye, and so item 3 passes 8-1. Let's go to item 4. Do we have a motion for item 4?
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval. Item 4, Andrade Christensen requests a zone map amendment from the A1.5 and RA zones to the CG and VLDR zones to develop a 4.17 acre mixed use development located approximately at 1560 south and 1100 west.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Okay, let's begin voting.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll vote aye, and so item 4 passes 8-1 as well. Okay.
Do you want to find out, Danny, what you would want differently? Is that useful to pass along with a recommendation?
Yeah, that's fine. My only issue, is, as I said earlier, was just that I didn't think a VLDR was necessary.
You would do LDR?
I thought it could have been contiguous commercial.
Okay.
So that's why I voted no on both of them.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
How come no one ever denies that motion?